This is episode 45 with Jay Papasan.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
Aloha, Men of Abundance. It is Aloha Friday, and as usual, I'm extremely excited to bring you our featured guest today and introduce you to Jay Papasan. Now, as far as I'm concerned, you should already know that name, because if you've been paying attention to Men of Abundance since the beginning, his name and his co-author, and most definitely one of their books, has been mentioned several times on Men of Abundance by many of our guests. In fact, as I've mentioned before, their book, The One Thing, has played a major part in me launching this podcast. In fact, if you recall, I mentioned that in episode 41 with my conversation with Jeff Woods. Jeff Woods, along with being the podcast host of The Mentee, he is also the vice president of the One Thing team. Now, just in case you didn't know who Jay Papasan is, I'm going to introduce him in just a minute, and I'm going to talk a little bit about him just before we bring him on. And before we do that, I have a really quick message for all of my fellow podcast hosts out there, or those of you who are considering starting a podcast. Now, of course, your podcast is audio, and you should know by now that many people, especially men, are visual by nature. Your audience wants to see what you're talking about. They want to see you. They want to see graphics. They want to see, in some cases, the words. They want to see the pictures. And in order for them to do that, you have to have a beautiful, inviting website that's easy to navigate through. Now, I don't know if you've seen my website at menofabundance.com, but it is absolutely gorgeous, and it's getting better, and it's evolving. It's a child, and it's growing, and I'm loving to watch the evolution of the way this website has gone from when I started working on it by myself to when I started having a team at Podcast Websites working on it for me, along with me, and collaborating with me. Now, most of my listeners come through my website. I've been watching this. Even though it's Men of Abundance, I can see who's coming in. That 32% as of today of my visitors to my website are women, even though this is a Men of Abundance podcast, which is beautiful. I love it. I know how much time people are spending on my website, and I know my bounce rate is very, very low, and it's because of the platform that I'm using with Podcast Websites. And the podcast player is unbelievable. I've got Clamor in there. I've got all the buttons, bells, and whistles that makes it easier for the visitors to my website to consume the content and consume these audios and consume the podcast however they want to. The platform even allows me to do live Facebook videos and plug them directly into my blog at menofabundance.com/blog. I can go on and on and on, but I want you to go check it out yourself. And if you click on the link that's at menofabundance.com at the resources page, you will get a $10 discount if you choose to use the services. Now, if you already have a podcast website, which I'm sure you do, and is hosted on WordPress, they will move everything over from WordPress into the Podcast Websites platform, which also is built from WordPress. But the beauty is they have exclusive plugins that are built specifically for podcasters. And to sweeten the whole deal, they've got basic to very advanced training on podcasting, networking, SEO, everything you could possibly need to grow your podcast, to monetize your podcast, to grow your audience, and so much more. And they're constantly adding tutorials to the back office that's exclusive to Podcast Websites members, along with the Facebook group, which is by itself worth the price of entry, because you have all of those podcasters and their veterans, brand new, helping each other out in so many ways I can't even get started. I just cannot say enough about the team over at Podcast Websites and everything that they've done for me. So if you're at all interested in taking your podcast website to a whole new level and your podcast as a whole, go to menofabundance.com go to the Resources tab, scroll down, and you will see the podcast website's logo. Click on that, and by going through that link, you will get a $10 discount. All the information you need is at that site, but if that's not enough, then you can schedule a one-on-one call with Mark or one of the techs to make sure that Podcast Websites is for you, and they will shoot straight with you to ensure you're making the right decision. Now it's time to introduce our featured guest, Jay Papasan. Jay is a best-selling author and co-owner, alongside his wife Wendy, of Papasan Properties Group with Keller Williams Realty in Austin, Texas. His most recent work with Gary Keller on The One Thing has garnered more than 300 appearances on the national best-selling list, including number 1 on the Wall Street Journal best-selling list. Jay serves as Gary Keller's co-author and executive editor on best-selling titles including The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, and many other books that are listed in the show notes of this show at menofabundance.com/045. In addition to all that, as I found out firsthand, Jay Papasan is a practical joker, and as it turns out, so is Jeff Woods. If you stick around to the end, to the very end of this episode, I'm going to throw in a little Easter egg that shows how Jeff and Jay had a little fun at my expense. All right, let's bring Jay out. Jay, welcome to Men of Abundance.
Thank you so much for having me, Wally. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to get you on the line. Finally, read multiple books that you and Gary have written and followed you and watched many of the things that you've done over the years. But where are you at in the world today?
Austin, Texas is where I'm talking from. I actually am lucky enough to have a room with the view. My office overlooks the Greenbelt. And if I could just see another half mile, you would see Austin City Limits Music Festival, crowded with about 100,000 people, which is just a stone's throw away from where we are right now.
Beautiful. I like Austin. I've driven through there quite a bit. I've never really stayed there, but spent a lot of time in San Antonio and Killeen, which is Austin's in between the two.
Yep.
Yeah. So every time we end up going to San Antonio, we always make sure we stop off in Austin. We like that area down there.
I feel like in 50 years, the two cities will be like Minneapolis, St. Paul or something. You know, they're just kind of growing together slowly.
They really are. Between Round Rock, it's going to just start from Round Rock and go all the way down to San Antonio, without a doubt.
Yep.
So I like to start out the show like I start out most of my mornings, Jay, and that is with an attitude of gratitude. What do you have to be grateful for today?
You know, my number one thing is always family. It's really, really tied into my purpose. And we ask, what's the one thing you're thankful for every night with our kids? And I just that's where I come back to all the time. It's that structure and that safe place and my fort in this world. And I just am so thankful that we're tight and I've got a great, strong family around me.
Beautiful. Absolutely love it. So before we got started here, I talked a little bit about you. I shared your bio, some of the stuff that you've done, but I want to get a little bit more personal and get to know you just a little bit more, because here on Men of Abundance, we like to really get to know the man behind the greatness. And so if you could, let's get a little bit personal and share some of your story with us.
Sure. I think, this leads to what's something that people don't know about you. The thing that I think most people, they see what we've accomplished, and I'm on stages a lot now because of that. I am a huge introvert. Every behavioral test I've ever taken has defined me as someone who gets energy from being alone. And it makes sense when you think, well, he's a writer, but I'm also a business owner, an entrepreneur, I'm a leader. And so it's something that in my journey, it's just woven throughout it, is how to succeed through others. And where I think some people are very natural in terms of reaching out and networking and connecting, is something I've had to be pretty purposeful about, because it's not something I'm going to ever do naturally. And so it was something I was reading that question. I was like, that's just something that's the undercurrent of my entrepreneurial journey, is learning those lessons again and again. How can I succeed through others at a higher level? And because you just can't do anything really worthy of a legacy all by yourself. It has to be with others.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And from what I understand, I consider myself an extrovert, but even though I'm with people for an extended period of time, it does kind of drain me sometimes, but it depends on who I'm with. But that's different.
Right.
Being an introvert is different than being shy, correct?
Oh, it is. It is true. I used to have stage fright, but I don't think I was ever shy. I'm pretty assertive with my ideas, but I just don't need it. I'm not drawn to it. If I have an opportunity to go to a conference and network with people, or go to my hotel and watch a Netflix movie, what am I going to choose every time? Netflix. It takes a force of will and purpose to kind of get me going in the direction that, if that's what my business needs, I need to go downstairs to the conference and meet people who I can succeed with.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So with all of the success that you have and everything that you've done so far, and working with Gary Keller and all the books that you've been associated with, and goodness, all of the speaking gigs that you've been getting and everything, I know along the way, anybody who is doing as much as you're doing, there's got to be some kick in the gut moments in there, and I'd love for you to share one of those stories with us.
Sure. I love this question. It's like talking with my wife. She's like, well, what year is he talking about? Right. I think if you're intent on some personal growth, and I'm like, again, I'll come back to being thankful for my family, in particular my wife. She's an entrepreneur. She's running a multi-million-dollar business herself that she's built from the ground up, and she's on a journey. She's on a journey to discover her potential, and so we get to do that together. And I think when you do that, it's just skint knees and bruises. It's so hard to identify the big ones. But the one that jumped to my mind, and I've only talked about this one other time, is I made a horrible business mistake with the right person. Cut a deal. We agreed to terms, and we did it on a handshake. And I'm the kind of guy that thinks that's okay. And I do think that's okay in the grander scheme, just to know I know this person so well that I can trust them to do the right thing. And about 2.5 years later, we went to, I guess, measure the results. And we both saw it differently. They were being totally operating from integrity, and they saw we had a $500,000 gap between us. And so I could look at that as having lost $500,000 or given it away. And I've made the decision, with some help from my coach, who sometimes gets to be a counselor as well, that I gave it away because I chose to structure a deal that at the end of the day turned out to be ambiguous. And that was a big lesson for me. So even with people that you have absolute, complete trust with, and I can say this individual and individuals on the other side, there's nothing but goodwill there. This is an honest mistake that is $500,000. And it's very legitimately ambiguous thing. And so I just, you can say I wrote it off. It took a long time to swallow that pill, but it was a great lesson. And I just made a commitment to myself and the people. If someone I'm working with is thinking of do this, I don't care how much you trust them. Both parties are better served if you think through all the ways it could go wrong and just put an agreement in writing. You don't have to go hire lawyers, but you need to work it out on paper so that there's no ambiguity. And this all literally came down to the way we were doing the accounting. And it was, are we on cash accounting or are we on accrual? And that became the basis of the misunderstanding. And it was, boom, that's on me. So that's my kick in the gut moment where, I'm playing in the big leagues now. A mistake that we make in terms of an agreement can have 6 or 7 figure consequences. And so it can make or break a company. It could mean bankruptcy for my family. So it was a great wake up call that I was able to recover from, because it wasn't money that left my pocket. It was just money that didn't go in it. So that's easier to recover from, and I hadn't spent it before I got it. Thank goodness. So it's just one of those. That was it. That's probably the biggest business mistake I've made. And if I were dealing with different people, I probably could have hired lawyers and ended up somewhere in the middle. But it didn't seem like the right thing to do since I had a lot of DNA in the problem.
Wow, Jay, yeah, thanks for sharing that with me. That's really an eye-opener for some. What happened to the relationship?
Still have it.
Good.
But it's defined now.
Yeah. and maybe even on paper.
It is on paper, and it's by contract, and that's good. And they understand where I was coming from, and over time there have been other concessions that have chipped away at that perceived deficit. But they also felt that they were seeing it the right way too, and that again comes back to me. I'm the one who proposed the deal. I should have been wise enough to insist that we document it, because if you actually had to document that, cash or accrual accounting, that's something that gets demystified fast. You have to ask those questions, but we just didn't. We said, great, and we'll handle it this way. Awesome, I can't wait. And it was all in good faith, but you just need to treat business money decisions with a higher level of detail, because both parties can be right from their perspective, and that then you have winners and losers in ways that you don't need to have. That's painful to talk about, man.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I relearned that lesson again today.
What's that?
I said, every time I think about it, it's good for me. It's a great way to remind myself of the price of not having learned that lesson in a less expensive way earlier in my life.
Well, and that's interesting, because I didn't, that's not really part of my intent for asking that question of my guest. And it is nice that does come out that way, and I appreciate you saying that. The reason why I asked that question is so that all of our listeners can understand that, one, you're going to have those kick-in-the-gut moments if you decide to step out of your comfort zone and do something, especially in collaboration with other people, because then it's not just you involved, it's others that you're relying on, and they're relying on you as well. But to understand that we recover from that. And that's kind of what I want to get into right now with the pivot point. So even before you started working with Keller Williams Realty and starting your own, I don't know if you had your own business before that with Keller Williams, but I know you was working with HarperCollins Publishers. But what was the pivot point to kind of catapult you into the journey that you're on now? Sure. And, there's been, again, many milestones on the way. I think my biggest pivot points, when you wrote the words "enough is enough," I actually thought about my health. So in 2011, I had back surgery. And leading up to that moment, I had played rugby and soccer in college and was athletic, but not an athlete, to be honest with you. I enjoyed sports, but I also was gifted to be tall, and so I could eat whatever I wanted to eat, and as long as I was active, I stayed in decent shape. Well, my back started going. It was very painful, and towards the end, I had to have a stool on stage because I just couldn't stand for about more than 30 minutes. It was a struggle, literally, to walk around the block. I was starting to lose feeling in one leg, and I remember finally, I went to see a specialist in Dallas. And finally came to terms that I can't, all the things I was trying weren't working. I had some serious fear issues around surgery. I'd worked in a biomedical company, and I knew many percentages of things go wrong. But when they're operating on your spine, that 2% chance or whatever can be pretty catastrophic. And I was like, what? I need to move forward. I've got children. I want to be running in the yard and playing with them, not watching them from a wheelchair. And it started me a journey, because right up into that point, because I'd been shut down, I weighed 245 pounds. My waistline was about 6-7 inches bigger than it is now. And then that started a journey where I made a commitment that over 5 years I was going to fix my back, my shoulder, and my allergies. And there were 3 things that I was tolerating, and they were really impacting my quality of life. And it's a longer story, but it was a very systematic. I started with the surgery and diet and working out, and got myself into shape. I prehabbed my shoulder before shoulder surgery, got that done. And then for the last 2 years, I've been on a program to try to mitigate some really bad allergies that we have a thing called cedar fever here in Austin. Mm-hmm. And the best time of year be outside is when it is just miserable for me. And this last year, things were measurably better, and I expect them to keep getting better because I finally started doing the things I needed to do to make my life different. But anyway, that was 2011, and that's had resonated in my family, my business, because now I have energy.
I can do things. I can move around. I can be outside. I can do things. And that's just one of those core issues, your health. If that's not working for you, it compromises everything that comes after it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I just posted on Facebook today a quote that I read out of The One Thing, which is, if you don't take care of your body, where are you going to live?
Yeah, I almost just said that. That's funny.
It's gotten a lot of comments, as a matter of fact, and I think that's perfect for this moment right now.
There's in the One Thing book, we have that metaphor of the domino run and the geometric progression, and anything that grows truly big over time in a geometric progression, it looks like a hockey stick on its side. It looks like nothing's happening. Then it starts to grow at a rate that will make your eyes, jump out of your head. Well, that we believe is the shape of huge success. And the truth is, the shape of huge failure is just the opposite. You can neglect something like your health for a very long period of time, but when the symptoms start to show up, they can go to catastrophic really quickly. And I think entrepreneurs, they don't sleep, they don't eat well, they neglect it, and they think that because they're young or they're just so passionate. What they don't realize is they may be setting themselves up on a foundation that's very, very weak. And the moment that kick in the gut moment happens, it could all go out from under them. And so I just think it's easy to miss that thing. And that might be one of the reasons that it's resonating, because people kind of are aware, I can't keep eating these bacon cheeseburgers for lunch. I can't keep doing this, because at some point it can become literally catastrophic for you.
Yeah, exactly. And like you kind of said there as well, I think it was Jim Rohn that said those things that are easy, that you should be doing are easy to do, but they're easy not to do as well.
That's one of my all-time favorite quotes. Yeah, sometimes the things that are easiest to do are also easiest not to do. We're between the two of us, we've got all the words. We just don't have them perfect, but that's the essence.
I never get them right.
Yeah, but it's true. It's like, eating healthy is not complicated. It's just easier not to. Getting up and doing a little workout, like even one on the web, is not complicated. It's just easier to sleep in. And so it does take a little bit of purpose and willpower to drive. You have to be pretty intent on living a bigger life to just start systematically doing those. But in my experience, like on that journey of health, once I figured out I could knock one domino down, just getting the surgery behind me in the rehab, it kind of helped me believe that I could start chipping away at this. And though it might take longer than I wanted, at the end of that would be something worth having. And I think that once people start down that journey, they start getting those little rewards and they can start to believe.
Yeah, very good point. So we've been talking about The One Thing, and I'd like to talk about that because The One Thing is really the catalyst that got me to finally get this podcast started on July 4th of 2016. Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why I say that is because I was going to write a book, and I still have, I'm still going to write the book, Living Your Life of Abundance. And there were, I had imposter syndrome, and I had this idea that I didn't want the book to be all about me. I wanted other people to influence it and all this other stuff. And then, I started gathering all this information. I got so much information in my head, so many ways I could go with it. Then I discovered, I thought, well, I could blog about it first. Then I discovered podcasting. But the bottom line is I wasn't taking any action. And a mentor of mine, I actually already had the book, and I just stumbled across it again, just perfect timing. Started reading it again, or actually audio, because I do more audio than anything. And I was like, you know what? I just have to make a decision and move forward and make a map. Just like The One Thing states, I went online, I did all the, got the worksheets and everything. And that's what did it. And that's what got it. So my question to you is, many people out there know The One Thing, especially in my circles, because I just tell everybody about it.
Thank you.
My pleasure, absolutely. But what was the motivation behind that? What between you and Gary and really putting that book out and now traveling around talking about it all the time? And now you've got Jeff Woods, who's basically VP of the One Thing team, and it's grown into this huge thing.
Well, it's one of those, for Gary is one of the most intentional people on earth. I mean, I'll just say that. He's far more than me. We had a plan to break out of real estate which is where we built a reputation and into business. And we were going to write The Millionaire Small Business Owner, and we still will. But we had that idea, and we actually were writing a course for real estate agents, and Gary went home, wanted to write a new introduction to it, and came back with a 5-page essay called The Power of One. And like the moment I set eyes on it, I was like, Gary, this is a book. And it's not just a book, it's the book. And, I've tried to explain this a number of times, and the best way I can say is this. I have so much respect for my mentor and partner, Gary Keller. I wouldn't be who I am today without his tremendous influence over the last 16 years. But he's not always the smartest guy in the room. He doesn't work the longest hours. Like all the things that we think add up to success. You're going to look at Gary and go, well, he doesn't actually do all of those things. Like he's not going crazy on those things. The thing that his superpower, if you want to give him one, that's led to him being number one in the world in his category, is his ability to identify the priority and then give it time, more time than anyone else. He's just willing to say no to say yes to that priority. And so when that power of one, right, which is the essence of the book, is identify your number one priority and then give it the majority of your time. I was like, this is in perfect alignment with the man I know, the business person I know, the father I know, the husband I know. This is in integrity. Like, we have to write this book. And we were all in. And it was a 5-year journey to research and write the book. But, we started from this amazing place of someone who was very literally living it at a high level. And so we were able to write out our hypothesis about what it took and then hand it over to 2 independent researchers that, they weren't independent, they worked for us, but they weren't us, and said, go prove or disprove all of this. And then we just dove in, and it was a great journey. We both did a ton, and we got to refine something that he was doing entrepreneurially in some places and be very purposeful and process oriented. Just kind of, how can we distill this down so that other people can do it too? And I think we're achieving it if you look at the book sales, because people are passing it out and sharing it. And I love hearing that you started this podcast because of it, because we want people to take positive action, because that's where change happens. You have to do something, not just think something. It does begin with our thoughts, but we wanted to paint a path so that people could make their priorities happen. So you made me very happy. You just made my day.
I appreciate you guys writing the book and putting it out there. And it's not just for the podcast. It's for my family as well. Just this week, I'm making changes with my podcast because it's been a 3-day-a-week show, and I'm taking it to a 1-day-a-week show because of the chapter on balance. And basically, there's no such thing as life balance. It's a counterbalance. I absolutely love that and resonate with that because I've been in a counterbalance on the podcast side for the last 3 months. And it does take up a lot of my time. But the reason why I believe I'm living a life of abundance is because of my family lifestyle and the other things that I have going on in my life. So now it's time for me to counterbalance back and do a little bit more on the podcast as far as as many interviews to one podcast or one episode a week, and doing a little bit more on the marketing side, but also giving me more time to go back to what's really important to me, which is my family. So It's a seesaw back and forth, but like the book says, and like you guys say in the book, you don't want to be too far away. You can be far away from your vocation for longer than you can away from your family, because your chances are your vocation's going to be there longer than your family will stick around.
Yep. Yeah, you can't neglect something. You can neglect the little things at work for a very long time and stay focused on the one thing. Mm-hmm. You can't neglect other areas of your life and expect people or your health or your spiritual health or your financial health to be waiting on you. Those things can deteriorate rapidly. So kudos to you for internalizing that. You've launched your podcast, so you put in the unbalanced time to make that happen, and now you're going to rebalance for the long haul so you don't burn out or get in trouble.
Exactly. Spot on. Absolutely. So I see success, and you've definitely been successful in your personal life. And I see success as a great thing for your personal being. And then taking that from success to significance. And you've certainly done that as well. But I want to talk about your greatness. And where I see greatness is when you're doing something for other people. Now, writing the book was certainly doing something for other people, as well as going out on stage and talking about it. But now I want to talk about what you're doing with Heroes for Children.
Sure. And we write the books. We measure our success by, it's great how many readers we have, but the goal is to help people. And I do think that that's the reward system as well. When we find out that that's working, it helps keep us going, because it's a pretty lonely business. I mean, you spend a lot of time alone preparing to share something, and you just hope it helps. So thank you for that. So Heroes for Children is a charity that I've been involved with now for 6 years. It is a Texas-based charity. 2 moms had children with terminal cancer and young daughters. And when they were in the hospitals, when they were in the cancer treatments, they were looking around and realizing that they were very blessed, that their church and their family and their work family were able to help them through a tremendously trying time. And there were a lot of people around them that didn't have that. And so in the names of their children, they started this charity, Heroes for Children. And so I went to a poker tournament. One of their fundraisers is, they used to call it a guy's night out, a professional hold'em tournament where you paid to get in, got free food and drink, and you won prizes. But it's basically there for you to buy more chips and donate a lot of money. And it was great fun. I heard the founder speak, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Because if you're a parent, your absolute worst fear is to have your children fall ill, and to have it be a cancer and terminal is just a worse nightmare. And then they shared how their charity fills the gaps between what insurance will pay for and what they won't. And it's simple things like hotel rooms and gas money, a laptop for a sibling. And almost all of these families, one parent has to give up their job, so they're working on half their income, and the time spent in hospitals and travel. And so I just got sucked in. I thought I was going out to play poker with the guys, and I got totally sucked in. At the end of the tournament, I walked up and said, I want to volunteer. And what's great, and this is part of the backstory we were hinting at before we started, that year, our president, Mary Tennant, looked around. She had come from our largest, most successful office, and she had built an amazing culture, and she was trying to build that in our corporate offices. She looked at all of us giving each other gifts. And the professional gift giving. It's like, well, who do I have? Do I have to give a gift to my boss? He didn't give me a raise this year. And there's all these politics tied into it, and you don't want to offend people, and you want to get it privately. And she just said, I would like to challenge everyone in our company you can still give a gift to your best friend, but there are no more gifts expected. And I would like you to donate a full day of giving back to the community. And then we'll come together at our Christmas party, and each department can share what they did. And so I had just kind of volunteered, and then I started recruiting other people. And by the next year, I was chairing the committee. And I've done that with my wife now for 4 years. And it's been a journey, leading a nonprofit push for anything, event planning, all of that has caused professional and personal growth. And probably in terms of what I think you're challenging people to think about, the reward for us is we've been on a wealth building journey, investing, saving, living on a lot less than we earn. And we were giving a good amount of money, but we felt like we could make a bigger impact. But the hero's journey and us volunteering our time, and I just didn't do a lot of that growing up. I didn't do soup kitchens with my parents. We did stuff with our church, but I didn't do it in the community that much. And so it wasn't something I was naturally going to go do. And now we set goals, not just around what we will personally give. As a family, we set goals around how much money we can raise for the causes that matter to us. And that has been, it opened my eyes. Like, you can donate your time, your gifts, your money, and your influence. And all of those things can really change the world. And so that's in a nutshell. I got passionate. I'm a sucker for kids. I enjoy a good night out and playing cards. I'm far from a good card player, and that's to the charity's benefit by far. But we, last year we netted 111,000 on 140,000 in revenue, and everybody who attended the event was just so happy. So I love sharing it with my kids and my coworkers, and drawing people like our mutual friend Rob Dial. He came out of the audience and said, "This was so much fun. How can I be a part?" And that was me, and I'm like, yes. How can we get more people to experience volunteerism, and how good it feels to give time? Writing a check is one thing, and it can be life-changing. Giving your time can change 2 lives, yours and theirs.
That's a very good point. And yes, when I was talking with Rob Dial, and he mentioned that you and him were working in the same organization together with Heroes for Children. And then he also mentioned that the parents were paying something like $500 a month just for parking in these locations and stuff. It just blew my mind. That doesn't make sense to me.
They this last year, and it's like, you just get more and more exposed to it, and it's more and more heartbreaking. The founder, Larissa, we'd had a really good year, and she said, "Hey, I wanted to reach out," because they're based in Dallas, and they have a really strong presence in Dallas, and they have a good presence in Houston with MD Anderson, and we were part of their Austin expansion, in Texas. And it says, "Who is providing for the children who are stuck in the cancer wards over Christmas?" And I'm like, I have no idea. I didn't know that was a thing. Well, you don't wait till after Christmas to get chemotherapy, right? Of course, intellectually I understand that, but I'd never thought about that. Mm-hmm. So there are all these families, and they're driving in from like West Texas. They're sleeping in their cars with their whole families at Christmas. And they don't have Christmas presents. They don't have Christmas dinner. So last year, we partnered with the South Market Center, Keller Williams office where my wife works, and we were able to provide a Christmas meal and present for 80 kids. That's the kids that were in the treatment and all of their siblings. And you just talk about how, in the book, we talk about how one domino allows you to knock over a bigger domino and so on. It's been a really amazing journey, and you just want to you start asking, how can I do more?
Yeah, and Abundant Leaders, this is exactly what I'm talking about being abundant in everything that you do in life and being intentional about it. And there are so many ways. I never even considered these issues that these parents are having, and besides the emotional effects. And I know it costs money for the treatments and everything, but you don't think, and some insurance covers that, like Jay just said, but you just don't think about certain things like this. So there's so many ways that you can tithe in your talents, time, and treasures. You just got to figure out what it is. And like Jay said, giving is one thing. Giving of your treasures, you're helping somebody for sure, and do that. But when you give up your time, you really are helping yourself as well in so many ways. That
to me has now become the baseline, that I want my kids to volunteer, and then later they can also donate from their wealth as well. I think we're going to start by donating our time and talents. And I think that's just, I didn't start that way. I'm happy I discovered it later in life.
Beautiful. So Jay, we are going to pay it forward to Men of Abundance. You ready for that?
Yes.
Outstanding. So give Men of Abundance 1 to 3 actionable steps that they can take today.
Well, I'll go back to the one thing and just kind of do the if there were 3 steps I would encourage people to follow, would be 1, to get very, very clear about what you want. One of my big ahas when we were writing the book is we were trying to define the word success. Like, what does that mean? Because it means something different to everyone. Mm-hmm. And finally, the simplest definition we could find was success is getting what you want. And what I've discovered in the 3.5 years since we published it, teaching it and talking about it and training it, is that a lot of people are very, very unclear about what they truly want, or they're afraid to articulate it. And so to be a person of abundance and to have a legacy for you, your family, and the things you care about, I think it starts with getting clear. What is it that you truly want? Identify, step 2, what do you think is the number 1 activity, the priority for making progress towards that goal? Where you are today, whatever that would be. And then I encourage people to time block it. So if I'm going to write that novel, I've always meant to write, And I guess I could have done like, I'm going to start the podcast. I've always wanted to start the podcast, right? You get clear about what that's going to involve, and then you start blocking off time to write the chapters. And that becomes a habit over time. And that taking action in a simple appointment with yourself, just putting it on your calendar. In our research, it makes you 3 times more likely to do it. When you just say, I'm going to write this weekend, good luck. But if you put it on your calendar from 10 to 12 on Saturday and from 3 to 4 on Sunday, I'm going to start working on my novel, your odds go up by 3x. So get clear about the activity you need to do that will lead you, that first domino towards success, and then just put it on the calendar so you can do it.
That's one of the biggest things I tell people all the time in reference to, I live out here in Hawaii, and people are always like, man, I wish I could come out there. I wish I could do that. Maybe someday. I said, put it on your calendar. Amazing things happen when you put the things you want on the calendar. And then, it's just amazing. And then you figure out how to start taking action. Yeah,
you just work backwards. All right, if I'm going to go in December, well, I've got to buy a ticket. How much does a ticket cost? What does a ticket cost to Hawaii?
Oh, goodness.
$1,000?
Yeah, $1,000.
All right, so $1,000, and I'm just going to pretend like I have 10 months. Well, great. I need to save $100 a month. Like, you can, whatever your math is, like putting it on the calendar allows you to work backwards and figure out what you have to do to make that successful. So yeah, I agree. There is some commonplace magic in that simple act of writing it down and making that intentional commitment.
So what daily habits make up the biggest impact in your life, Jay?
I alluded to it earlier. A central keystone habit that we built when I was coming back from back surgery is I knew I wanted to get back in shape. And my wife wanted to be on that journey. She'd had 2 kids. Like, well, I want to work out with you. We had small kids. So we didn't want to do it after work. All of the research in the book says you need to do it in the morning when you have willpower and when you don't have any distraction. And we didn't want to hire a babysitter, and we didn't, so the only way we could figure out to work out together and do it when we thought we would make the commitment was bring a trainer to our house. And so we split the cost at first with someone else, and then we did it by ourselves. And so Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we had a trainer show up at our house at 5 a.m. in the beginning, which meant we had to get up at 4:40. Today, our trainer shows up at 5:30, but we've been doing this for, 5.5, almost 6 years now. And what's been beautiful about a rhythm of 3 times a week, knowing that we have a very serious workout with someone who's also our health coach, what's been the unexpected gift of that, not just waking up and becoming even more of a morning person, is that time with my wife has been invaluable. I didn't even anticipate how meaningful it would be for our marriage to work out together. And it's really good having that third person. So it's not like I'm teaching her to play golf or something, because that can be disastrous. But, Chris shows up. He says, here's the workout. Wendy, let's do this. Jay, you do that. Boom, we're off to the races. And it's been very bonding for us. And then the biggest gift of all happened at the end of the summer. My son, who just turned 12, asked if he could start waking up early and working out with mom and dad. And I was like, how cool is that? We didn't have to push him. He saw the role model happening and said, I want to do that too. And that, to me, just was like, that's been one of those habits that's been at the center of my diet, my health, and it's also now impacting my marriage and my parenting, and I just love it.
Yeah, as you're talking, I had a conversation with Jeff Woods last week, I think it was a couple weeks ago, which Men of Abundance, they played a little trick on me at the beginning of the show before we got started, and I might put that at the end as an Easter egg later. But it just shows the humor that you guys have. I love it. But, you said something that was really profound. And if anybody's read The One Thing as many times as I have and as have actually studied it, I bring up Jeff because Jeff mentioned that not only Gary, but Jay also lives the one thing. And he said something that you would catch. And I'm sure he did as well because he's living it, or maybe he didn't catch it. And that is this. He said he does his workout in the morning while he's still got the willpower. Because the book mentions that as you go throughout the day, your willpower gets drained like a battery. And that's the same thing with me. And the other beautiful thing that you mentioned that I love about that is my 7-year-old has been working out with me since he was 2. And he constantly reminds me, Dad, wake me up in the morning, but now I'm doing my workouts at 4:30 in the morning, 4:35, and once in a while I'll wake him up. But he gets mad at me when I don't wake him up to work out with him.
Yeah, it's we had to put a hold on it when school started, because I was like, I think that right now your job number one is to be a student, and you need your sleep for that. And so he hangs out with us when we do it on the weekends, but we've given him some of his sleep back, and we may have to rethink our schedule if we really want him to be a part of it. And I'm willing to do that if it means we get to do it together.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the reason why I don't wake him up as early either, because of school. On the weekends I do, of course. So other than The One Thing, and we've mentioned some other books that you guys have written together, what other book would you recommend to our abundant leaders, and why?
All right, I wrote down 3, and I'm afraid that the first 2 have already been recommended, so I'm really prepared because I have a million books. Has anyone yet recommended Give and Take to your audience?
Give and Take, no.
Okay, so Give and Take by Adam Grant. It had a really big impact on us in our organization, and it's a study on, there's 2 kinds of givers, and the people who are purposeful about the way they give tend to have tremendous success. And I won't spoil the chapter, but like one of the very first things you read is how people who are innately, there's takers, matchers, and givers is the 3 categories of people. The takers make the most money. And you're like, well, that's what we see. And I just don't want to believe that that's true. But when they looked at it more closely, the people who make the most in the world are actually people who are strategic givers. And so in this context of this podcast and what you're talking about, it just seems very relevant. And we're writing our second edition of The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And one of my good friends, Ben Kinney, who is one of the world's great givers, by the way, he is amazing. He said, you know what? That whole book was about backing out. What would it take to build a business where you could earn $1 million, net $1 million, and then receive $1 million, like be an owner and just get ownership income? Said, what would it be if you added a final chapter, that what would it look like to build a business so big you could give $1 million? And that all came out of that book. And I just remember that moment, like, yes, that is even thinking bigger, and that's where we want to go. And as a result of that book and that conversation with Ben, and we have so many people in our industry now that are starting foundations so that they can be incredibly purpose and set aside business income. And like the Dell has the Dell Foundation. Like big companies think this way, but small companies can think this way too. So totally recommend that book. It's an easy read. And for givers, you're going to be inspired on how you can give in better ways.
I'm definitely going to have to get my hands on that book, because that perfectly resonates with who I am.
I hope I sold it hard enough, because Adam should give me royalties. I got to meet him once, but I'm just a big fan of that book, and I do recommend it. I've got a stack of them on my shelf that I give away to people who haven't read it.
Well, I haven't read it, and I'm definitely going to get a hold of that one, because it perfectly resonates with what I'm doing here with Men of Abundance and who I am.
Awesome.
So what are the other 2?
Well, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. I'm a writer, but it's something that I know a lot of entrepreneurs love, because it's about battling the resistance. Like, we know what we need to do, but there's all these reasons we can come up for not doing it. And it's one of the best books on battling the resistance. How do we get done what we know we need to get done? And then the last book is just a book that I've given away a lot over the last 3 years. It's called The Defining Decade, and that's by Dr. Meg Jay. And it's really a look at that decade after college, 25 to 35, and how absolutely important it is. And it's given me, I have nieces in that age group. I have people who report to me in my businesses, and my wife works with them. It just gave us a lot of insight on how to be better mentors, and better uncles and aunts. And so I've given that book out a lot to the young people in my life.
Beautiful. Thanks for those recommendations. And I'll have all of those listed in the show notes at menofabundance.com. Just search Jay in the search bar, and this episode will come right up, and you can scroll down. There'll be timestamps in there as well, so that if any part of this, if you're driving right now or at the gym or whatever, you don't want to write this stuff down, you'll be able to click on the timestamp and go directly to that point of interest and listen to that part over and over again, like I'm sure I will. Jay, I have one last question for you. It's one of my favorite questions to ask just about anybody that I'm in contact with on or off the show, and that is, what does living a life of abundance mean to you?
We worked on a book called The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. And so where my brain goes is we defined financial wealth. And in that book, we wrote that financial wealth, which to me is very similar to abundance, if not the same thing, was having the unearned income to pursue your mission without having to work. And a lot of when my wife and I defined our future goals, it was around if we could build our life such that our work was purely for passion, not because we had to pay a bill, what would we be doing and what would it take to get there? And to me, when you can reach that place where work is a choice and your time becomes a gift, not just to yourself, but to everyone else, that for me is that place, financial wealth, that's abundance.
Beautiful. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I love that answer. Thanks for that, Jay.
Thank you.
So we're going to close this up. We've taken up quite a bit of your time, and I truly, truly appreciate your time. I know this is the day before you're getting ready to go on vacation, and you've got a lot of stuff to do. So I'd love for you to leave us with a parting piece of guidance and any way that we can follow you and what you got coming up.
Sure. I guess if people want to connect with me, visit theonething.com with the number 1. All of my social links are there, and I'm pretty disciplined about when I do and don't drop in, but it really is me. And if people send me a private message, I will do my best to get back to them and answer their questions. So that would be how to connect. Parting wisdom, the thing that I have to repeat to myself and I share with you in terms of my journey is, to put it in Gary's word, no one succeeds alone. And as long as we always bear that in mind, I think we can be a lot more purposeful about surrounding ourselves with the right people that will get us and them where we all want to go faster.
Wonderful. Thanks for that. I really appreciate that. Great advice. Great conversation. Absolutely love this conversation. It was a lot of fun. It got started out right away with a lot of fun with you and Jeff, since you guys are right down the hall from each other. But again, I appreciate your time, Jay, and have an awesome day and have a great vacation.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Take care.
All right, buddy. Take care.
All right, there you have it, Men of Abundance. As promised, another amazing conversation. Now go out and live your life of abundance and make sure to pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.
All right, you there?
Yep.
Okay, my Skype always messes up. For some reason, it wants me to switch back and forth between two settings, and it's a 50-50 chance, and I've only gotten it right once.
Yeah, that's interesting. Our Skype switched back and forth between two people.
That's weird. Yeah.
This is Jeff Woods.
What's that?
This is Jeff Woods.
Oh, hey, what's going on?
Jeff was in my office. I said, pretend like you're me for a second and see what happens.
Well, unfortunately, I don't talk to the two of you enough to make the difference, so I could have gone through the whole interview and completely gotten Jeff.
Awesome, Jeff, I know what you're doing now. No.
You know what, just for that, let's go to video.
I promise I won't mess with you again.
Okay.
All right, Jeff, I'll be in touch next week. Have a great week.
Thank you.
You won't be here when I'm done, right? Or will you?
Doubtful.
Okay. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.